Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Build Computers. Today I'm taking a look at the AIO Elite 360 D-RGB. This has been sitting in the background of my videos for a couple of weeks now, waiting for me to have time to do it, but I'm actually down in the shop in the evening, finally coming to unbox this thing and get it fitted into my test computer behind me, which is currently Cinebench R23ing on its current cooling system, which is a Corsair H115i something or other. I lose track of the Corsair Hydro ones. So it's a 280mm water cooler. I ordered this one in from Amazon US because it was unobtainable in the UK, I think, at the moment. But this is the latest version of it with the big Elite pump. The older version of this one had a sort of a prism-looking water block on it that looks nicer than this one. However, this one with the Elite pump has got like double the RPM of the non-Elite version of this. So theoretically, this thing with the 360mm rad should be an absolute hecking monster. So let's open it up and see what's inside. And we've got, 6 fans. That's the first thing that caught me out. So first of all, the price. This thing is, initially, I thought, really heckin' expensive as well. The list price on this was about $200 US. And I think in the best price I could find in Europe was about sort of 230, 240 euros, something like that. I'll put actual prices on the screen at the time of editing when I can look them up properly. And originally I was like, that's a lot of money, you know, considering you can get the brand new Corsair Capellex that I recently reviewed for like, that's down to £120 now, so probably 130 US dollars. That's a lot of cooler and a lot of RGB for just over $100 kind of thing. And so this thing is obviously like double the price of that. But you get the 360mm rad, and I was like, is that really worth it? But when you actually factor in that this thing comes with 6 of EK's big-ass RGB fans, suddenly that price is making a lot more sense. And when you actually factor in how much decent RGB fans cost, suddenly that price tag is actually looking really, really good. So you get 6 of these fans. So we're going to be running this thing in a push-pull configuration for maximum, I can't even hold all these fans, for maximum obnoxiousness. I'll take one of these out of the bag in a sec, just to show you what we've got. We've got a fan and RGB controller, because obviously they're not expecting you to just have a casual 6 fan headers and 6 RGB headers on tap. So that's really cool. That's a really nice looking unit, actually. It's got the clear top over it and an EK logo underneath. I like how they're sort of, it looks like a water block, if you see what I mean. That's pretty cool. We'll take a closer look at that in a moment. What do we got? Cables, fittings. Oh, bloody hell, that is a heckin' chonker. This thing is a cube, and massive. However, that's what you're paying for with this thing. There's the pump head and the massive 360, I keep wanting to say 360 degrees, but 360mm radiator, which is fairly modest in terms of the thickness. But, you know, the thing with this one is this is all about the airflow and the pump rate. Airflow and liquid flow. It's not about how thick the radiator is on this thing. Because with AIOs, there's a lot of diminishing returns with radiator size, to my knowledge. So this is why the Elite version with the crazy pump was so attractive to me, because I believe there's not a lot of difference between like a 280mm rad and a 360mm rad, because it's no good having a huge radiator if you can't actually flow the liquid through it. And so the idea is here, with the big, huge pump, we can actually take advantage of this big, huge rad. And then obviously the pump's got a bit of RGB on it as well. So, and that guy is powered from a 4-pin CPU header. So that's rather nice. We only need one SATA connector for this. We've got just CPU power header for the pump, and then a SATA power connector for the fan controller. So I'll put this to one side and we'll start taking a closer look at the individual parts. So let's take a look at the hub. So this is the EK hub. It is a 7-channel fan and RGB hub. So it is not a controller. I presume that if you just apply power to these things, they will probably do just rainbow wave or something like that. I'll put that to the test. However, if you actually want to program in your RGB colors, what this thing does is you've got a header here called motherboard ARGB. That plugs into your motherboard's ARGB header, which can be the 4-pin with the missing pin, as most of them have, or it can be the 3-pin VDG header that, for example, Gigabyte motherboards have. You could also plug that into any other ARGB controller if you're using some kind of third-party setup, but you'd probably be plugging this into your motherboard. And then at that point, it's going to take the signal coming from your motherboard and plumb that out to all of your fans and the pump as well. So it's 7 channels because you've got 6 channels for your fans, and the 7th channel is intended for you to plug the pump ARGB header into. However, the manual does specifically state not to plug the pump itself into the fan connector. And that is because you don't want to run your pump at the same speed as your fans. Or rather, you probably want to run the fans at a much lower speed, and you want to give your pump almost full power most of the time. Although this is a monster pump, so we'll see how noisy that gets. And you're going to set the speed of these fans using this plug here. That is MB fan. That is going to plug into, for example, a chassis fan header on your motherboard, and you can send a PWM signal to that to set the speed of the radiator fans, and that's how you're going to control that. And as you can see, the whole thing is powered from a SATA connector there. The fans are VADA S 120ER fans, and they've got these massive hubs on them. So I'm expecting to see a lot of airflow out of these. So with that in mind, we'll start plugging this all into a PC now, and I'll show you more about the pump as we actually mount it up. Let's get some baseline figures from my Corsair H115i first of all. Normally I have this cooler top mounted in my LAN Cool 2, and I have 3 RGB fans at the front providing our intake airflow. But because I'm going to front mount the EK AIO, I have front mounted the Corsair to get some comparative results. These are not going to be scientific tests. If you want science, go to Gamers Nexus. However, I want to give some just rough ballpark figures to show you a rough kind of comparison so you know what to expect and whether these things are worlds apart or not. So I've front mounted the radiator to get something that's in the same ballpark with the same kind of fan configuration. I'll also be running the EK with a 3-fan and a 6-fan configuration, so we can get a rough idea on how it performs with just a single push fans like the Corsair, as well as having its full 6 push-pull configuration. So for now, with Cinebench R23 running on loop, we're getting temperatures of about 80 degrees or so, and on a 5800X, that's quite normal. This guy is a hot boy. It's got a very nasty hot spot on it. We're pulling about 140 watts, well, 138 to be 139 to round to the nearest watt. And we're getting boost clocks of approximately 4600 megahertz. Not sure why hardware info is flashing like this, whatever. So these are the kind of numbers that we're getting from this at the moment. So from an improvement, what I'm looking to see is either lower temperatures or higher boost clocks. Because remember, we're on a temperature dependent boost here. So if our temperatures go down, the CPU is going to boost harder and thus get hotter. So we want to monitor the boost clocks to see, because we might see exactly the same temperature, but higher boost clocks. I'm also going to try running another test here where I lock off the boost clocks at a particular frequency. I might try and see if we can get an all-core 4700 on this, which will just eke a bit more power consumption out of it, just to drive these coolers a bit harder. However, 80 degrees is a temperature that I don't really want to go above on a daily driver, but we might do so for the sake of science, just to see if we can find the limits of the Corsair as well as the EK. If I step the cooling up to an extreme fan profile, so we've got high fan speed and maximum pump speed, we've just shaved off a little bit of that temperature and we've gained a little bit of clock. We're now at sort of 4625, looking for 4650 every now and then, which is only a tiny bit, but that's just that little bit higher clock, which just shows that the CPU is pushing just a little bit harder because it's running slightly cooler. So obviously, again, that amount of clock seems negligible now, but we have to bear in mind that we're currently under an all-core load. And when you translate this to daily use, it means that you might be getting more opportunistic boosting from Precision Boost Overdrive. So that's what we're looking for here. I've now just sledgehammered in a dirty 4.8 gigahertz all-core overclock, and we've pushed the CPU package power up to the mid 150s, so we're at 157, 158 watts, that kind of area. And now we're seeing temperatures of the high 80s. We've had highs of 89. I think if we give this a little bit of time, we'll see 160 watts and 90 degrees C. So this is going to be my sort of slightly torture test scenario. I haven't spent a lot of time on this overclock. This is not necessarily what I'd recommend running. And it just died. However, about 90 degrees or so, yeah. That gives us a rough idea on what to expect from there. So, Caradog, as someone who doesn't like RGB, how does this make you feel?
Makes me feel like it's 50% unnecessary.
But it's going to look good. We'll let the comments decide that. However, that is a lot of fan and radiator. So to mount this thing up, I've taken the AMD screws, which are these weird long boys here, and I've just taken off the first bracket and I'll screw these guys down, and then I'll take off the other one, and that way my backplate doesn't fall off the bottom of my motherboard. Alternatively, if I was sensible, I would flip it over, get some masking tape and just stick some masking tape across the backplate so it doesn't fall off while I'm trying to mount it up. But thankfully we can do these one at a time. And that will give us our big old standoffs that we screw down onto. And I'll now just put the AMD brackets on the bottom of the block here. And we've got some screws to go into there. And, oh, I've got to make sure these are the right way. I assume that's going to be the right way around. Yes, that will be the right way around. Buzz those in. I'm generally not a fan of mounting systems that require me to bolt brackets onto things. However, these do fit together really nicely. I have not looked at the instructions at all for this, and I'm figuring it out as I go, and that's always a good sign. This is as opposed to the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2, which I had to download a PDF from their website in order to figure out how the hell you mount that thing up. This thing seems to be a lot more obvious, much more straightforward. So let's offer this up. I'm going to use the pre-applied thermal paste here. I have put pre-applied thermal paste to the test before, and generally speaking, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. If you're number chasing, it did actually come with some ectotherm, which is probably slightly better. All right, that's going to go down there. And that goes on. And that is, oh, I see what we're doing now. Ooh, I like that. Okay, I can release that. Now we get out these massive thumb screws, and we've got a thumb screw plus a spring. So that's why these boys are so tall. So we drop a spring down onto each one of those studs, and there is our hold down tension. That's a very nice mounting system. I like this mounting system a lot. It's not quite as simple to fit as the Corsair, but like this is vastly superior to the Corsair mounting system as well. The Corsair mounting system is simple, but the 2-point hold down, it's not that effective in my opinion. I don't like it. It works and I would use it, but I want something better, and this is something better. Ooh. Ooh, it's making whooshing noises. Right, well, those fans are looking heckin' gorgeous, and just, oh, the airflow from those, man. That's just a stock. All right, let's get this thing set up. So as expected, these big old LED fans with 9 LEDs per fan are giving beautiful chromatic glow all around. The semi-transparent fan rotors give really nice diffusion, so they look fantastic. The big hubs with the solid EK logo stickers on them do block out the center, but they also give a fairly distinctive look. And it's kind of up to you whether you prefer the open center. Like you can see I've got the Lianli fan at the back here, which has got no sticker on it. So that's giving more glow toward the center of the fan, whereas these give a very sharp line around the center. But that is an effect in and of itself, especially combined with the fact that it's such a huge hub on this fan. So I personally quite like that effect, and I think it sort of shows what's in there. And if we turn it around so we can see the back, we've got the same beautiful chroma at the back as well. These things are very visible from behind. It's always a pity when you have to have the labels facing you with front mount radiators, but you do get a very decent amount of light going into the back. And of course, because this thing has come with 6 fans, so we've got fans on the front and the back, you don't have to choose where the fans are visible. You just simply have fans everywhere. In terms of performance testing, I'm going to run tests for this with both 3 and 6 pin fan configurations, because for most general setups, you might find that 3 fans is plenty good enough for your CPU if you're just running at stock. And you can use the extra 3 fans as case fans if you don't already have any RGB fans. I think that would be a perfectly valid option as well. The water block I thought looked like a bit of a brick when I actually pulled it out the box, but now it's actually mounted up inside the PC. It actually looks like a beautiful cut glass monolith. I like it a lot more than I thought I would. My only disappointment is that the only RGB on it is literally just the EK logo. And to be brutally honest, if it's just the EK logo, in my opinion, they may as well have just not bothered and just had one less RGB thing. One less RGB cable in the system. I was under the impression that we were going to get some glow from around the sides of the block as well, but you know, either it's invisible or it ain't there, one or the other. I'm pretty certain it's just not there at all. So that's a little bit disappointing. I'm fairly certain that in the pictures, yeah, certainly, like I'm looking at the box across the room now and I'm pretty certain those pictures showed a glow from the side. So we're on stock settings at the moment, and it's just starting a new round of it. And as you can see, the core clocks here are holding just a little bit higher than they were with the Corsair. We've got sort of 4625, 4650, those kind of numbers. We've certainly got a confident, 4625 at the very least. And the temperatures are hanging out at about 75 degrees. So we're just straight away about 5 degrees lower. And this is with about the same kind of fan noise as the Corsair was giving, I would say. And this is on the 3 fan setup, remember, as well. So this thing has got more to give. So what I'll do now, I'm going to run the same test with my dirty overclock on and just see how it copes there. Then I'll run the same test in the 6 fan configuration. So I'll skip to when I've got the results. Here's the dirty overclock at high fan speed. Fans are still slightly quieter than the Corsair was, in my opinion. And we're getting temperatures that are just a shade lower. We're trying to get to 85 degrees C at the moment, which is a couple of degrees down from where the Corsair was. And this is more important because we're at a locked CPU frequency now as well. So there's no boost algorithm involved in this now. It's just a straight up, how cool can we keep this 165 watt load? And so far, the EK with only 3 fans, not 6, is still just about winning. There's not a meaningful amount in it though, so I don't think this is really meaningful. When we stick the extra fans on, we'll see what's going on. I've now got the full complement of 6 fans connected up. And so now you can see we've got the lovely chroma effects on the inside as well. So we'll see how this does. Now, it's worth noting that this is the point where cable tiding on this gets really hectic. If I just swing this around to show you guys the back. Around the back, I've mounted the fan hub onto a 2.5-inch SSD plate. And thankfully, the Lianli Lancool 2 plates are flat, so you can put fan controllers on them and be able to have wires exiting out from either side. This is as opposed to the Corsair style ones, which are more like a tray, and you can't put fan and RGB hubs in those because they don't allow side exit wires. So it's super cool that I've been able to put this out on show, and as you can see, the EK logo lights up on it as well, which is a little thing, but just another nice little touch. It's actually worth putting this thing out on display. However, good luck tidying the 16 wires that go into it. I've done what I can with that one, but man, if you want perfection on this, you're going to be cable tidying for a long time, allowing for the fact that those wires have got to come all the way from the front of the case as well. So you've got to contend with not only the routing of them, but the length. And the wires will seem super long, but as soon as you actually want to cable tidy them in any kind of aesthetically pleasing way, suddenly that length is nowhere near what you need. For real cable tidying, the cables actually need to be twice as long as they would normally be. So, however, I don't think it looks too shabby. Let's see what the performance is like. 6-fan configuration, we have not cracked 75 degrees, and I've left this running for a bit longer than the other tests, I think. We're also getting a pretty confident 4650 in terms of clock speeds as well. It's dipping to 4625 here and there, but it definitely seems to be just a shade higher than everything else. And again, I know these are very, very small increments we're talking about here, but this shows about what the CPU is thinking and what Precision Boost Overdrive is thinking about for general use. We might not be seeing much when we're sitting on in an all-core AVX workload. However, when we're in games and we're looking for opportunistic boosting, those differences could be much bigger. So again, that's the significance. So last test, let's do the dirty overclock. Dirty overclock, we've had highs of 83.5. Again, it hasn't made it through the test. I had to restart the test because this overclock isn't fully stable, but we've scrubbed off a degree maybe. So my opinions are, I don't feel like the 6-fan push-pull configuration really makes a massive difference. But that's not to say that it's a waste of time, though. There are 2 considerations that I've got in my mind for this. Is number one, having all the fans on there, this does give us, there it goes again. This does give us the benefit that we've got front fans to push through that radiator, and the rear fans are providing a huge amount of airflow through to the back of the computer. Whereas normally, if you've got your fans front mounted on the radiator, you'll find that there's really not a lot of airflow behind the radiator. It will block off airflow into your case quite considerably. The air is still getting into the computer, but you don't get as much throw to get it over to the graphics card, for example. So again, it swings and roundabouts as to how effective it is. The other thing, of course, to consider is that where this is coming with 6 fans, you could stick 3 on the front and then you could stick your other 3 along the top and back if you don't already have RGB fans. And I think that's a reasonable consideration to make. So it's up to you. Based on my very unscientific testing, I'm not convinced that the 6-fan push-pull config is really worth it unless you're just going, I want every last degree. But I leave that decision up to you, to be honest. In any case, I'm thoroughly satisfied with this thing, and I think it makes for an amazing centerpiece. In terms of value for money, coupled by virtue of the fact that you've got 6 RGB fans, the 360mm radiator, and probably one of the most powerful AIO pumps on the market, the price tag is actually extremely reasonable for this if you can get it in your region without paying arms and legs for delivery. I'm certainly happy with what I paid for this thing. So past all of that, thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I will see you guys in the next video. As per usual, all my support links are down in the description below, or stick around for the end card to see my Patreon, my Twitter, my Discord, and now my Instagram as well. Bye!